hello and welcome to today's video. And today we're here for the racing debrief once again. And this time we're talking about North Wilkesboro. And man, is that just fun to say? I've been excited to see that track return, see a track revitalized, and to see a historic part of NASCAR return is just, it's so special, it's so cool to get to see. You don't see tracks that have been abandoned and, lost return, especially after, 27 years. I remember thinking that seeing any racing at that track would never be something that I'd ever watch. It'd just be highlights on YouTube. And then, they scanned it for iRacing in 2020 when they did iRacing. It was, a little bit there. And I was like, okay, well, I'll see a race of North Wilkesboro and iRacing, but that'll be it. And, to see it with some racing last year when that happened. I didn't get to watch those races, but knowing racing was happening there, and when they announced it would be the All-Star race, I was so excited to see an old NASCAR track return. I always like the history of a lot of things. History in general is something that interests me. So the history of, the sport that I love is important, and to see a piece of that come back is just so special, and to have that moment to watch that is a very, very cool and a kind of emotional moment to see the Cup cars race on that track. It was special to see. So we're gonna get into all of that. So first, though, we're going to jump to Wednesday. It was the Cars Tour race. I never watched a Cars Tour race, but I was like, you know what? We'll check it out. So I got a Flow Racing subscription. And I wanted to see Kevin Harvick and Dale Jr. race. That was mainly the two drivers that I wanted to see in that. But just overall, the racing in that series is very interesting. It's kind of cool to watch a racing series that is a lower level of racing, a grassroots level type thing. It's kind of cool, a little different to see. It's not like I haven't ever watched that. I've seen that at local tracks before, but I never watched it on TV. To tell you that much. But again, to see these Cup drivers racing there, and just the talent in that field in general. It was a good race, and it was cool. So that was the first time I ever seen a race. That was a North Wilkesboro race. And I thought it was a good race. I thought it was fun. I liked every race that I watched this weekend. There was a lot of excitement in that race for sure, to say the least. So definitely enjoyed it. I don't know, maybe I'll watch other Cars Tour races, who knows. But again, to see North Wilkesboro raced was such an awesome moment. Watching that unfold was very, very cool. So, we jump to Saturday. We go to Friday night. We have the Pit Crew Challenge, which was very, very cool to see that. Again, put all the emphasis on the pit crews and, a little bit on the drivers. Of course, that takes it back a little bit more to what you used to see at the arena event that they used to do, where's the pit stop and they jump over and push the car. It held a little more of a vibe to that. Of course, they've done pit crew challenges since then, but a lot of them don't necessarily put the entire emphasis on the pit crew. I know last year at Texas, it was sort of like they pit the car, changed the tires, and then you took off and did a lap. So there's a little bit more to it. This is purely just the driver pulls in the box, changes tires, and they leave. So that was cool. It was cool to see Ty Gibbs win that as well, and his team, and the fact he named every pit crew member. Again, you don't really see many drivers doing that, so that was cool when he did that. So you go into the heats the next day. Oh, actually, we got the truck race first. So the truck race, that was, again, very, very cool to see. Points race in North Wilkesboro for any series. Kyle Larson absolutely pulled up and dominated that one. A little bit of action in the back of the field for sure, but out front, Larson was gone. It's very cool to see the trucks that take different lines in the, both corners trying to find any grip. North Wilkesboro does not have many grip spots. Apparently never used to. So we were talking about, but of course, being pavement that was paved in 1981, you're not going to have much grip. So that was interesting to sort of see just the search for the grip. And in those corners, everybody getting as low as possible to the parts that were, new concrete or new pavement. Because the only part they didn't redo was the racing surface. So everything that was off the racing line, so a little bit, the whole infield, just a little bit near the track, like near the wall area and on the back straight. So you get a little bit of areas you can find some grip. So you saw a real lot in the truck race. Drivers getting down on that in turn 1 and a little bit it took a little later in, but turn 3, 3 and 4, you see a little bit, but a lot in turn 1 and really coming off of turn 2, going the back straight for as long as possible on the new pavement. Because again, that surface, it was insane seeing that old of a track. I mean, I remember seeing a few weeks ago, it might have been this week going into it, but an up close shot of just how bumpy that is and how tore up that is. So it was definitely cool to see a old surface used in an old, just the driver searching for grip on an old track. Because again, that was what made a track like Atlanta, before they repaved it, what made the racing there so good, was just how much it wore the tires and drivers sliding around. So you kind of had that vibe on a short track. So if they do eventually repave it, which I'm sure they will have to, it's not something you can just completely avoid. But I hope they can find a way to keep it abrasive and slippery and just something like that. And I think they'll be able to do that. So you went to the heat races, and the heat races, those were good because we got to see the rain tires on an oval for the first time in a Cup car. So that was a whole wild sentence. Rain tires on an oval on a Cup car, and that oval being North Wilkesboro. Who would have thought that 3 years ago? Or even 2 years ago, honestly. Yeah, so the rain tires, they got absolutely tore up. I forgot what driver they took it off of. But they showed it on the broadcast. The whole tire was basically just a smooth tire, a slick tire. You had one little bit of tread, but the rest were just all smooth tires. So, very, very interesting sort of seeing the Cup cars on that. And again, racing on a wet track, or damp track. I liked it. And it was interesting that the lap times that the drivers had were better on the tread than they were on the slicks, which you don't expect normally at a track, but I guess at a track where there's not much grip, getting a treaded tire probably would help. So it's interesting, though, to see that the treaded tires were faster than the slick tires. So now we go to the Open, and this is the big day. And the Open was solid. And I thought going into it, I was like, it's going to be Ty Gibbs and Josh Berry. Because, I mean, it's kind of like you'd expect that the Gibbs car and the Hendrick car would probably get through. Looking through the field, because it's pretty much the Gibbs car, Hendrick car, the two worst Stewart-Haas drivers, and then some guys. So, it was definitely one of those things you look at it, and the four drivers at the end being Josh Berry, Ty Gibbs, Eric Almirola, and Ryan Preece were not surprising. Again, I thought that it would be Gibbs and Berry making it through because they're in the best two teams in the Cup Series. And then you go to Stewart-Haas, which is kind of like drop down in its level. It's kind of became a semi mid tier team. It's kind of like a step behind with this new car, or the next gen car at this point, or whatever we're calling it. And then when you have their two worst drivers, which are Eric Almirola and Ryan Preece, you don't expect that you're going to do the best. So when I looked at it, I pretty much thought those were the two drivers, and it was those two. Not much in that. I mean, Noah Gragson completely smashed the inside wall, trying to take it too tight. I mean, that's what he does. He makes his weekly mistake. That one took out a few cars. He was able to get through and actually won the fan vote, which I always just find hilarious. Noah Gregson's fan level is interesting to me. Now, I'm not gonna go too much into it, but my take on Noah Gragson is just like, bruh. I felt that the way that he raced at Road America was absolutely ridiculous, and I don't really think he really did much to redeem himself from it. He kind of just went out and won some races. He didn't really it didn't seem like he just said, alright, I'm done doing that stuff. We're good. He kind of just went out and said Ty Gibbs bad. And then it was like, oh my god, we love him. Because apparently people don't like Ty Gibbs. I'm kind of confused on it. I guess he drives a Toyota. And he has the last name to be there. But also the most popular driver in the sport has the last name to be in their spot. So I don't want to get too much into it, but I just find it all ridiculous. But either way, Noah Gragson won the fan vote. The main incident was Michael McDowell being mad at Ty Gibbs because short track racing. Again, you get bumped out of the way. Michael McDowell got slightly bumped up. Gibbs had the spot on him. He got pushed slightly. And McDowell crashed with Justin Haley. So McDowell got his car repaired, came out, and when he was getting lapped by Ty Gibbs, he decided to try to hit into him. It cost Ty Gibbs a spot, but didn't really do much at the end. So it's just one of those incidents that it's just like, you look at it and just like, that was just a short track incident. Nobody got taken out in like an intentional manner. So we go to the Cup race overall. And I really liked it. I thought North Wilkesboro was good. I don't think that people saying it was boring or whatever really knew what they were in for. A lot of things leading into it, people were saying that North Wilkesboro used to always be like that. There wasn't a lot of cautions. It had a Richmond vibe, but better. Richmond, I think, is kind of mid. North Wilkesboro had that, again, the element of the tires wearing out. I think that was very interesting. And, you know, the drivers managing their tires, who did the best with that, I feel like is just one of those things that it wasn't a bad race in my opinion. I think a lot of people thought it was, or not the most exciting after being hyped up, but it was what you expected. And again, we know that the next gen car struggles on short tracks. We've seen it last year. Who would have thought Martinsville would be the worst race of 2022, but it was. And this year, you look at Martinsville, you look at Richmond. Neither one of those were super, super thrilling. And you're surprised that a track that's known for not having a lot of cautions didn't have a lot of cautions. I'm not surprised. That was the part that I was worried about, was that people were going to say it was bad, but I think it's a lot of has to do with the car, again, struggling. The tires being wider. So even when they wear out, it's not the same. You still have a bigger area of contact to the track. It's just natural. So it wasn't the most exciting thing from that standpoint, but I think the race was good. I think that it put on the action that you wanted. I don't think you need to have a race where everybody crashes. I don't think you need that. That's not the most entertaining every single time. Everybody just crashes in the demolition derby. I think the tires wearing out and the way that the race went on, you know, maybe if there was a caution at one point earlier in the second half of it, maybe that could have brought out, some sort of strategy to get to the front. I mean, that's what we've seen. That's how Kyle Larson got up there. The lap 15 spin by Ricky Stenhouse was the only caution in the race that wasn't the stage at the halfway point. And that let a few drivers get on tires. I mean, Kyle Larson, I think it was Tyler Reddick, and Bubba Wallace, I think all three of them. And Kyle Larson went right to the front. He drove through and passed everybody. It was so impressive, and he did not lose the lead since then. He went out and dominated that second half, pulled away, and that's pretty much it. I mean, again, I think that a little bit more tire wear, tire fall off, that would have forced him to pit. I think they could have brought a little more strategy because we didn't see any pit stops in the second half. So, had somebody pit, how we got a caution a little bit later, maybe you would have seen a little bit more strategy drama. But I don't think the racing was bad. I think it's what we expected. I don't think that if you had an expectation it was going to be more than that, I don't know. I think that it's one of those things that when you get a race with a smaller field as well, it also impacts it. Because the heats, the open races, a lot of those didn't have the most wild. I mean, I guess they open because a lot of drivers are trying to get in, but the heats, it wasn't that insane. I think that the trucks, obviously, it's hard to gauge because every truck race is a demolition derby. So who knows? But I do think if you do a full field, they got 24 drivers, you go up to 36. Even get up to 40 potentially because people are going to want to be in that race. I think you get a little more action from that standpoint. So, again, North Wilkesboro overall, it was brilliant to see it back. I love to see the things they've done with that track to keep the history to it. I mean, the wall that says Winston Cup Series, they did not repaint. Absolutely brilliant. You love to see that wall is still there, and they're not going to touch it. Because if they touch it, they got to get rid of it. Due to rules about cigarette sponsorship. But if it's there, it's there. They couldn't even put a banner over it that said Cup Series for the weekend. It had to stay. And I think it's awesome to see the old history there. I think to see a lot of the hand-painted signs that they put out there, a lot of it was like hand-painted for fans to be like, hey, we have hand-painted signs and not just like stick on a piece of metal. What I seen some of the prices of like beer and stuff wasn't too wild. So you get some stuff for, you get a soda for like $3 is not that insane. So to see a lot of that old school vibe to it, keeping the old seats, that was cool. The scoreboard for the top 5, that was changed manually. So cool to see. Even the new building that's there doesn't look out of place. It looks like it's part of it. It should be there the whole time. To see them go with the red and white theme of the Winston colors, putting the Cup Series there on it in those colors, and North of Wilkesboro Speedway designs in that, and to have that stuff in those colors and the Winston colors on the wall, like everything had that Winston vibe without saying it's Winston. It was so cool to see. So there's that. I love to see it. The scoreboard in the middle had a digital, obviously it was all new, all digital, but it had a rusted look to look like it had been there, and like the sign that was abandoned, how it looked. And the lights in the middle were absolutely brilliant with the multiple colors on it. For a caution, green flag, red flag, all of that. So cool to see. So I love what they did with North of Wilkesboro. So yeah, that's that. Other NASCAR news that we had to touch on for the week. The big one, NASCAR Exploring taking the Xfinity Series to a streaming platform at 2025, part of their TV deal. I don't think it's a terrible move. I think a lot of people maybe aren't for it, but streaming is the future. I wish that NASCAR was on streaming now for all three series. I wish I could just pay whatever, like F1 TV has $80 for a month or for a year, and you get everything. So I wish that NASCAR had a similar streaming platform option where I could just pay $80 for a year and then I could cancel having YouTube TV, which costs $75 a month. Um, so I wish that there was options for that. And I think going to streaming, I think touching on saying, hey, we're doing Xfinity on streaming is a step in the right direction to say this whole series on streaming. Rumors, the leader on that is Amazon, and the Amazon might potentially also be in the running for naming rights of the series, as Xfinity's deal, I guess, also runs out at the end of that time, after 2024. But I think it'd be kind of cool if Xfinity was like, nah, we're keeping that here, and they can promote their stuff while being on Amazon. I think that's the right business move. But either way, that's that. I think it's a brilliant move. So F1, let's touch on that real quick to end the racing debrief this week. F1 this week, of course, was canceled due to the flooding in Imola. So the main thing is hoping that that whole area recovers and, you know, everybody's safe there. That's the main importance with that. Of course, it was a shame to see Imola be canceled. It's a, fun track. It may not be the most exciting for passing and racing, but it's way more interesting than going to Saudi Arabia or Abu Dhabi or Qatar or Miami or Las Vegas. All these destinations that are paying a shit ton of money. It's cool to have those historic tracks like we're talking about in NASCAR. Having North Wilkesboro in NASCAR is important, and having those old tracks. And F1's no different. Imola is an old racetrack and one of those foundation tracks that you see with Spa, you see with Monza, you see with Silverstone. Like, those tracks are important. And when you don't have a race at one of those, it is a shame. Of course, Imola was gone for years after 2006. But when it came back, it was cool to see because of the history of the sport and the importance of those tracks. So, Imola will be back next year, and I'm looking forward to seeing that race. So, speaking of things we're looking forward to next week, I am thrilled. I'm so excited. You guys know how much I love watching racing and talking about it. And oh boy, next Sunday, Monaco Grand Prix, Indy 500, and Coke 600. We're going to have it all. We're going to talk about it all in the racing debrief. I'm so excited. Normally, I don't watch IndyCar racing. I watched a little bit when Jimmy Johnson was in it, but I never really got super into it. But I'll be watching the Indy 500, and I'm so excited to watch all three races. Monaco in the morning, Indy during the day, and Charlotte at night. I'm ready. It's going to be fun. But I hope you guys enjoyed today's racing debrief. Let me know down below what you thought about North Wilkesboro. And we'll see you guys in the next one.